Hey, hey, my friend, what do you say there? Beautiful day there. We out here, the birds out chirping, the cat's out lurking, and the prana and the chi is working. Much love. This is Jerome Shaw, host of the Open Palm Podcast Motivator, meditator, coming at you with another look inside of this beautiful book. And of course, the book is called A Year Without Food. We're going to get into the mood, exploring even more with Sir Maor. And much love. Thank you for coming back for these Wisdom of the Ages in the Pranic pages. And before we say this, if you haven't seen the beginning chapters inside this playlist, you can go ahead and check it out. And of course, that playlist is called the Pranic pages. So much love. Breaking the rules. Being a breatharian means that you have reached a certain level of self-fulfillment by consciously choosing. It's a good word. Consciously choosing to take up an extreme challenge. You are in high appreciation of all the universe has to offer you. Having rules is, in some way, in contradiction to the freedom your soul wishes for you. Your soul wants you to be boundless, free and full of joy. But having rules is a good thing, and it is also great to sometimes break some of them. A good example is a guy who eats raw food and becomes completely sick and tired of having organic pepper time after time. He is so locked into his world of rules that he does not even consider for a second what a good experience it would be to have a completely artificially created piece of chocolate. It is good to have rules because they keep you in your frame, but you should also allow yourself to experience things as they come your way. Imagine having a task list of 10 items you would like to achieve in a given day. You may strive to accomplish all of them, but achieving only 6 or 7 is also good. You may feel blessed for the ones you managed to do, while being understanding and forgiving for the ones that you did not do. After all, imperfection is built into all of us, and we should accept ourselves with love without self-judgment. It is important to choose the rules you break. A breatharian should not break a rule from a place of lower consciousness. For example, if someone is worried about how skinny you look in the first months of your breatharian life, and their love and concern for you influences you to go back to eating, you might be making a choice for them and not for yourself, right? We usually make choices sometimes for others, but not for our own health, not for our own wealth. But when do we make choices for someone else? Here is an example of my own rule breaking. It happened 2 months after my process, and I was in my office. I work in a normal job as a computer programmer, and the people who work with me are also considered socially normal, which is why I decided to wait for some time before letting them know that I do not eat anything. One day, someone had a birthday and was celebrating it with a beautiful chocolate cake. The group invited me to celebrate with them. They knew that I did not eat at work and concluded that I was just a health freak who only eats healthy food, which I make for myself, because they had seen me drink nothing but tea or hot chocolate. As I joined the celebration, I liked the cake that I saw. It was visually appealing, both in texture and color, and immediately many past memories and associations came to my mind. I knew that it was not in my rules to have cake so soon after my process. The understanding was that I had to wait at least 6 months before I tasted anything close to solid. I observed my mind playing or trying to play a trick on me by rationalizing it. Here go the mind games, right? My ego told me I was different, special and stronger than others who had failed. Remember that focus should always be on not smoking the first cigarette after you quit. Because I could observe my ego playing this game, I immediately refused. I witnessed and experienced the cake eating through the eyes and the bodies of others. Imagination is bliss. I passed my own test with success and was happy with the results. Taste, after all, passes after a few minutes, while the benefits of a breatharian lifestyle are numerous and everlasting. It's kind of like how they say, the feelings of eating might be fleeting, while the feelings of fasting are long-lasting. But I guess it depends on who's asking, right? After the celebration, I went back to my office and saw that my colleague had brought back a last piece of cake for me. Aww. I looked at it like a pirate would look at a golden treasure he just uncovered and immediately understood that I could have the cake. The particular challenge and the right decision was already behind me. I had already relinquished the need for the cake and refused my small ego. I had already observed the whole scenario from a third person's perspective. The real thing one should fear is the habit and not the joy that the present moment can give us. Bringing the piece of cake with me to my everyday life would create a new habit. But the non-repeating coincidence of the birthday, along with the fact I felt I successfully passed the test, I granted myself this surprising, in-the-moment gift. The cake was wonderful and I made every bite last. I took great pleasure in remembering what semi-solid texture tastes like, and the greatest thing is that it came as a complete surprise to me. After the cake, I immediately added a new rule to my arsenal. No more birthday cakes until I am completely ready to introduce physical food pleasures into my life. The moment was simply not the time for reintegration because I still had much to experience before getting there. You might ask yourself why a strong person would tie himself to so many rules, right? Why have all of these tools and all of these rules? Are we but fools? What we need to remember is that in Western society, food surrounds us all the time. Come on now, you just look down the street. You got your Chinese, you got your Thai food, you got your Indian food, you got your Italian food, you got your American food, you got your burgers, you got your this, you got your that. They're everywhere. It's like Ellie Tom used to call it an obstacle course. A food obstacle course is all around you, right? When you simply walk down the street, you are constantly reminded of food. This is not like being a recovering heroin addict who needs to meet other addicts in dark alleys in the middle of the night to be reminded of what they're missing. No. The rules are logic's way of coping with the life-changing decision of becoming a breatharian. Most of them are strictly applied only in the beginning to keep yourself in the framework until you set your own new normal with food, free and detached from necessity. Now, there's a saying that I love, and it's very true, that luxuries, once tasted, become necessities. And you might have seen it yourself in your own life whenever you take a bite of something new. You have all of those feel-good feelings flowing throughout you. And then You might put it down, you might pick it back up, you know. You might keep it around for a little while, and you might see how free you would be if you never picked it up at all. If all of those chemical cocktail of dopamine and feelings aren't revealing, would it allow you to stand even more tall? If every time you walked by that particular taste, you wouldn't have to keep doing double takes and turning your face, right? You wouldn't have to keep gravitating and continuing to chase if you just hadn't had that one little taste. But letting go of the rules, realizing we have tools, you can have that food, you know? It's okay, it's cool. But just realize that eventually what creeps on in is usually the place most people begin. When you intake that information and have that sensation, you might find yourself in a place of elation that might turn to frustration. If not maintained, if not sustained, but just don't allow yourself to go into shame. The rules are logic's way of coping with the life-changing decision of becoming a breatharian. Most of them are strictly applied only in the beginning to keep yourself in the framework, detaching from necessity. Discipline is part of achieving self-mastery. Most of the stricter rules apply only for the first 6 months to 1 year of being a breatharian, and others apply for life. You will notice many religions or philosophies have sets of rules created for you and are often motivated by fear. In the breatharian way, we are the pioneers in a largely unknown way of life. So we must develop our own rules and learn from them. Different breatharians follow different rules. I hope you now understand why it is also important to break your rules. Not allowing yourself any flexibility will give you the bad feeling that you are being too hard on yourself, right? Cracking the whip, right? Yeah! You don't want to feel like you're cracking a whip, you know? But you also don't want to feel like you're letting things slip, you know? This life is a trip, right? Not allowing yourself any flexibility will give you bad feelings, and you may develop inner resistance. Having a standard set of rules is a good guideline. On my personal path, I am not afraid to change some rules or bend them to suit different situations. I am easier on myself because I rely on my inner trust and strength. Each breatharian is different, but we have a universal goal: not to dive off of the high consciousness peak we have reached, like the ones we passed by on our way up. As I said, I believe that life is easy for those who live it hard. So it's interesting, you know, that we are all dealt different cards, you know, in the poker table of life. But often life seems to be easy when we choose to make it hard. But we can flip that idea and we can see it in a different way. For the life you want tomorrow, you have to choose to live today. Prana and science. To date, science has simply not accepted that breatharians actually exist. This is even after several scientific experiments were conducted, including on yours truly. There is a great German documentary on breatharianism called In the Beginning There Was Light. The director follows a few people who go through the 21-day process and interviews a few very well-known breatharians. I am also in contact with him, and we will perhaps embark on a mutual project one day. If, however, you are looking for a completely scientific explanation on how pranic nutrition works, you will not find it here. I, along with a few open-minded medical doctors, am looking for the same thing. There is no scientific explanation for many unexplained bodily phenomena. How can the body complete missing molecules by itself? Where do they come from? How can one simply drink juice without taking in any missing proteins, vitamins, carbons, etc.? How can one eat so little and still be healthy? Presently, we do not have any scientific explanations. This is probably due to the fact that science overlooks big portions of our reality, spirituality, and the connectivity of human consciousness with reality. I'm sure that one day we will have more tools and a better understanding of tough-to-explain phenomena. Just because science cannot explain something does not make it unreal, right? Just like they say, the absence of evidence does not mean the evidence of absence, right? Let's not forget that scientific inquiry keeps on overturning prior certainties, finding new explanations which show it had previously been wrong. Remember that the earth was once considered flat. We have scientific theories, but that is exactly what they are, theories. The Big Bang is an unproven theory, as is the theory of evolution. Some of us make the mistake of listening to the theories of our high school, college, or university professors as if they are the absolute truth. This prohibits objections and the exercise of our own creativity and imagination. Like Albert Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. You know, the things we didn't learn in college, right? Because knowledge can take you from A to B, but with your imagination, you're free, right? It can take you anywhere and everywhere. Okay. Bottom line, scientists cannot explain everything. They do not yet know why we yawn or if our thoughts are created in our brains. They do not actually know why we sleep. Everything is a theory. Science is also based on observation, and one cannot argue with an observation, which means a theory may be strengthened when there are many observations to support it. Equally, if there is even one repeatable scientific observation that contradicts a theory, the theory needs to be revised. Prahlad is one of the well-known breatharians on the planet. He has followed a breatharian lifestyle for over 70 years and has reached 100% pranic nourishment. He does not require any water at all. He was tested under lab conditions, observed by 2 cameras, and was at all times accompanied by a guard. Over 10 consecutive days, the observations were simple. He did not eat, he did not drink, pass urine, or produce feces. His body has reached a state of perfect recycling. The doctors gave him 2 daily ultrasound tests to check on his bladder and concluded that his bladder actually gained urine on some days. Amazingly, the same urine was absorbed by his body the next day through a recycling mechanism. Mr. Johnny also does not sweat at all. Different sources covered the story, including ABC News, and I recommend that anyone who is interested in the subject search for the documentary on YouTube. Thoughts and theories. Since we cannot really measure prana, we can only hypothesize about it. We are already able to take Kirlian photos of a person's aura, right? Kirlian photography, being able to see what is there, becoming more aware of the aura. A Russian breatharian has volunteered to be used as an example. As expected, the results showed that her biofield, which is the equivalent of a person's aura, was perfect and amazingly balanced. Right? We have so many talents, right? There are not many breatharians who want to investigate this natural wonder very deeply, but it is very important to me to try and understand every aspect of creation, including how matter is created out of the void. By matter, I mean the nutrition that our bodies require, carbohydrates, vitamins, proteins, and everything else that is somehow created out of nothing. When you become a breatharian, right? We talked about this in the Pranic World book with Christiana El Trayan, how they were seeing that there was just some percentage of something from nothing, something from nothing. They couldn't account for the amount of energy that was coming from somewhere, something. They had no idea. You see that with Hilton Hotema as well in the book Man's Higher Consciousness, where he talks about how something is brought, whatever this substance is, we don't know, this unidentified substance that enters the blood through the air. So it seems that in this time, in this day and age, we're becoming even more aware of what has always been there. I give some theories here that my friends and I have been pondering. They are, however, just theories, thoughts put into words. They are neither scientifically proven nor unproven. The purpose is to try and understand how prana fills in the missing gaps and how it gives the body what is actually missing. Water via humidity. I believe that when a breatharian's body is completely under water stress, it actually takes the needed water from the air surrounding the body. One of my friends talks about this when he was going through dry fasting, and I felt this as well, that you'll start to begin to very clearly tell that the air feels like water. He said the air felt like water. He said to you, the air blowing down, blowing around it, this just, it feels like air to you, but it feels like an ocean to me. He said the air feels like water. And the more sensitive you become, the more you start to let in. Realizing this is how some people begin. Almost all air has some humidity in it, unless you are living in a completely desert-like climate. I would say that it has to have some sort of moisture, because somebody was talking to me about how our lungs would basically combust if there wasn't any moisture at all in the air. How could we be there? So we are kind of like fish that live in water, but just are unaware of our surroundings, And that's why these perceptions are so profoundly confounding. And for me, this was astounding, right? There's water everywhere. not just in what we drink. There's a lot more around than what we think. This could be one possible explanation why Pralajani can survive without water. Perfect recycling system. In Pralajani's case, the scientific study has shown that his body has stopped sweating, and the most interesting discovery is that his body reuses his urine from the inside. This process of perfect recycling was actually observed on ultrasound. Since Mr. Jani was enlightened at the age of 8 into this way of living, it might be true that his young body learned to adapt to a new way of living very early on. Younger bodies tend to learn and adapt faster. Increase in body efficiency. As previously discussed, it is known from caloric restriction studies that when an animal is given less caloric intake, longevity genes like the SIR2, SIRT1 are activated and the body starts to work more efficiently. From initial measurements, it seems that the body initially detoxes and cleans itself. It uses up some of the collected garbage and starts to reduce nourishment more efficiently. It is also known that the body preserves energy by not allowing all its systems to work at full capacity. It reminds me of like Star Wars and Star Trek and different, imaginings with different ships and different galaxies. They have the starship and the starboard and the destroyer and these vessels, right? And whenever they need to divert power to the engines or divert power to the systems or divert power to this or that, the ship might be under attack, right? So they will reroute the energy to where the ship needs it most, so that they don't just coast, but actually they can just get ghost, right? Divert all power to the engines, divert all power to the hyperdrive systems, go into hyperdrive and go into hyperspace, and they're just out of that place, right? They're out of the race. But it's interesting that the body can do this as well. And you'll start to be able to even more clearly tell that when you let go, and it's almost like you've come under this spell, you leave it, drawing water from thine own well, and you're able to go so far. You're able to see those bright stars, right? But it's only when you're able to embrace what the majority of people find very hard, which is actually to let in more flow, not by what you do, but by what you let go. It is known that the body preserves energy by not allowing all its systems to work at full capacity. For example, why should the body keep growing facial hair at the same rate if it is not a necessity for survival, right? In humans, for example, once we start fasting, our blood pressure slows down to preserve our energy levels. This is why people who fast get cold faster, get a head rush when they stand up too quickly, right? Get a little woozy, and are generally slower. The real question about body efficiency is, how efficient can it really get? Can a single calorie replace 100 times itself in a body that does not consume anything? Where are the limitations and individual borders? A normal body has a minimum level of caloric intake. Consuming more than this amount will increase fat tissues for future usage, and consuming less will make the body use previously stored fat, causing us to lose some weight. Naturally, this explanation is much more complex, but this is its simplest form. Filling in the gaps. Since I personally know breatharians who have had no intake but water or herbal tea, 0 calories, for over a year, I now know that prana fills the gaps between whatever the breatharian drinks and what is missing for the needs of the body. This means that a breatharian can go back to eating a very low amount of food and prana will fill in everything that they are missing in the diet. So prana provides, right? You've always heard that saying, nature provides. Well, you can also say energy provides, the source provides, prana provides, right? When you allow it to reside, it always provides. Each body takes its own time to readjust to caloric intake changes. During my first year, I measured and know that I took in approximately 500 calories per day via drinks, not including air fasting and water fasting days when I had nothing. It took my body about 3 months after the 21-day process to get back into shape, regain the missing weight, and achieve my pranic ideal weight. So certain people will say that the pranic ideal weight is actually your real weight. The how good do you feel weight, right? Knowing this, I supposed that if I completely stopped drinking anything but water, it would probably have taken my body another 3 months to achieve my ideal weight, and that my pranic percentage would have jumped accordingly. I would have gone through another adaptation phase. An exception to this case was when a friend of mine who weighed 44 kilos going into the 21-day process lost only 4 kilos during the process. I assumed this was due to the fact that she had already reached her bare minimum weight and the prana had to kick up to a higher percentage. It simply had no choice. So that reminds me of one thing that, Eli Tom used to say us, that, nature filling in the gaps when we start to relax, Not when you relapse, but when you relax, does the light and the source come in to fill the gaps. So there is an ascension, but there's also a descension. That the spirit, the love, the prana, the energy descends upon you by what you discontinue. You then let more of the light to come within you, right? To fill you up. It's interesting how we're realizing now, And it isn't so surprising as we continue realizing. But we'll take a pause here. We'll take a little rest, a little breath, and we'll come back. But thank you so much for listening and glistening once more as we explore with Ray Maor the wisdom in this modern age. Much love for turning the page.